The story starts with a narration. It is said that soul dwells in things that are cherished, so what dwells in trash that has been discarded? Then shifts to a little girl's perspective, crying to her mom about her torn toy. She decides to discard it and buy a new one instead of stitching it. This gives us a brief introduction to the world of Gachiakuta and the themes that are going to be explored. The scene shifts to a waste collection site where a young boy is stealing trash from the dumpster. They called him the trash vandal. He gets noticed and flees with the little trash he could steal, including the torn toy in the previous scene, even though he gets shot on his arm in the process. The next day, news about the trash vandal continues to echo around town, with the authorities searching seriously, trying to arrest the trash vandal. Here Rudo the trash vandal meets with a close friend called Chiwa, who asks him why he constantly puts himself in danger, and he says he constantly feels sorry for the things rich people throw away even though they are still useful. After that, a few bullies arrive taunting him for his status in town as the son of a murderer. Here we learn that his parents were thrown into the abyss, a huge dump site where criminals and trash are discarded because of his father's crimes. The bullies taunting him ran off quickly when they saw his rage. The story then follows him on his way back home to a father figure he stays with called Rikto, who treats his injuries and tells him to be careful as he ventures out again into town to give Chiwa the toy he stole at the start of the story. But unknown to him, someone is watching him. He gets to Chiwa and gives her the toy, and she accepts it. This fuels his emotions and makes him happy. Immediately he runs back home to tell Rikto about it. On his way back he bumps into a mysterious hooded man. This was the man that has been watching him. When he arrives he meets a bleeding Rikto who has been stabbed by a sword on the floor, struggling to speak. When Rikto eventually gathers enough strength to speak, he tells Rudo to run, but Rudo refuses, trying desperately to save Rikto's life. Rikto speaks what seems to be his final words, saying, "This shitty world, you'll have to change it." Immediately after this, the police arrive and arrest Rudo as he is the only suspect around the crime scene. He tells them he didn't do it, but no one wants to believe him, even Chiwa. Not long after, he is tied up and displayed to the town as a criminal. With no trial, Rudo is sentenced to death in the abyss. Hearing this he snaps, and we see the real rage of Rudo, who tells the crowd that they are the filthy ones and he will kill all of them and send them to hell. After this, he is thrown out and sent into the abyss, where he wakes up alive in a huge dump site. Here he meets a huge garbage creature. A mysterious figure holds a young Rudo's hands as a voice echoes these words, "I wondered. Why is it that everyone's so concerned about the filth and the crooks, yet no one cares or even considers what happened if they fell into the abyss themselves?" This leads us to a present-day Rudo running from huge garbage monsters. He thinks to himself about the monster and how it got there, but in a split second two more spring up and one attacks him with incredible speed and misses by a few inches because of Rudo's quick wits and great reflexes. The incredible skill he used to dodge this creature causes him to trip and stumble on a skull. Seeing this causes him to get angry and lose his composure. Rudo screams out these words, "Fuck. Fuck all of you. How dare you people banish me to this hellscape." With extreme rage, Rudo struggles to breathe properly due to the air being polluted, but he keeps on moving, trying to run, trying to escape, but there is no place to run as everywhere is just a garbage dump site. Rudo, about to give up, remembers Rikto's death and the rage he felt after he was banished into the abyss. This causes him to rage, saying, "I have things I gotta do. Whoever killed Rikto, whoever tried to frame me, whoever looked down on me, I'll beat them to death." He rages on and sprints towards the garbage monster with a rod in his hands. With his speed he manages to dodge all the attacks from the monster, although he loses the rod in the process. He is able to improvise and cut through the garbage monster with parts of a roofing sheet. The garbage monster collapses and all his parts are about to fall on Rudo. Rudo tries to dodge the falling debris but struggles to move his legs. Then a mysterious person arrives with an umbrella to shield him from the falling debris. He gives Rudo a mask and tells him not to make any noise, but Rudo disobeys this, asking what the garbage monsters are and what the place is, but the mysterious man continuously tells him to be quiet. He keeps asking, "Is this the underground? I can't hear anything." The mysterious man yells at him, saying, "We're not underground. This is the surface. And like I told you earlier, shut the fuck up." This noise causes the garbage monster to reassemble and attack them. The mysterious man tells Rudo that they are called aberrants and can't be killed using normal weapons. He takes out an umbrella and beats the crap out of the monster, finishing it with an ultimate move, Unbreaker 8 tier. Rudo is surprised by his massive display of strength, so he curiously asks, "Who are you?" To which the mysterious man answers, "I'm Engine and I'm your average janitor." He complains about the stink and quickly puts back his headgear and mask again. Rudo awakens while being carried by Engine in shackles. The janitor makes fun of Rudo for nodding off, but the latter begs him to let him free so he can return to the sky and exact retribution. Engine explains that the Sky Island is referred to as heaven in the abyss and claims that climbing back up is impossible. Rudo insists that Engine provide all information regarding the power in the Abyssinian world that he witnessed him using. Rudo is dropped off at what appears to be a truck stop by the janitor, who threatens to teach Rudo what it's like to live in this world because he doesn't appreciate the attitude Rudo is showing. Here, Rudo encounters a group of enigmatic masked men who recognize his appearance and regard him as a threat, one of the Sky People. When Rudo acknowledges that he fell from heaven, the masked men excitedly unmasked themselves and started to befriend Rudo and start removing his chains, or so he believed till he awoke again tied on a truck. It is revealed that these individuals are human traffickers who wish to exploit Rudo's status as a sky person by selling him for a hefty sum. The men make fun of him and his background while saying that the Abyss people despise the Sky People because of all the garbage they dump there every day. The group's leader keeps making fun of Rudo and even tries to make him eat trash. Instead, in a fit of wrath, Rudo chews off the leader's muscle and flesh before he starts eating the garbage food, saying it's not trash if you can still eat it. Rudo's hidden talent was made available by this act of betrayal, enabling him to transform shackles and attire into weapons to fight the human traffickers. The group's leader refers to Rudo as a giver, alluding to his capacity to transform the things he comes in contact with. The traffickers band together to attack Rudo, but he easily defeats them. While the group's leader is terrified for his life, Engine, who is standing on a hill overlooking the encounter, is excited by Rudo's might. Engine leaps in to stop Rudo before he can deliver the decisive blow, bringing him back to reality. Rudo replies, "I don't want to join the janitors," to Engine's invitation to join the janitors because of a power he possesses. The scene opens up with one of the Engine's contacts on a phone call with the Engine saying you found a prodigy, further adding that he just happened to pick him up in the forbidden area. The scene shifts to a treatment facility where Rudo is listening to the Engine and Zanka talking about him while Rudo is being treated by an unnamed doctor. Rudo argues with Engine telling him that he didn't agree to join the janitors. The unnamed doctor yells at Rudo, cutting into the conversation telling him that he shouldn't have gotten lost in the forbidden area, adding that he put his life in danger especially after breathing in toxic air, and he should thank Engine for saving him. Rudo complains, asking what's up with you old man, but she tells Rudo that she is an old lady and asks him to pay for the treatment. Engine and Rudo leave the treatment facility, engaging in a small conversation about covering the treatment costs for Rudo's treatment, where Rudo thanks him for the help. Rudo tells him that he isn't interested in joining and adds that he just wants to get information. Engine replies to him telling him that the world is not kind enough to give him information for free and asks Rudo to follow him. Rudo and Engine continue their conversation while sitting at a burger joint, where Engine tells him about the aberrant beast and how they form. Engine describes it as emotions and thoughts that are converted into energy. He further adds that they exist outside town but could break into town at any time and attack. He explains to Rudo that the core of these beasts is a thought and what is needed to fight the aberrant beasts is a jinki. Engine goes on to add that Rudo's gloves can be utilized to fight the aberrant beasts, saying that it has the same effect as a pen used by a writer for a long time or a carefully sharpened knife by a chef. Engine tells Rudo that the janitors are givers and are able to harness emotional power or energy from their jinki. He tells Rudo further that they are givers that extract energy from a thought, and the janitors are an aberrant beast exterminating organization that uses givers. Rudo strikes a deal with Engine that if he joins the janitors, Engine will have to tell him how to get back to the surface. Engine tells him he doesn't have a clue, but his boss would know how. He adds that his boss might figure something out to help him. Engine takes a quick glance at Rudo's gloves. He understands intuitively that the gloves are not just to cover his hands, but they are important to him and have soul, so he tells Rudo to cherish them. This causes Rudo to become emotional. Engine gives him some money from selling Rudo's clothes, and Rudo yells at him for selling his things. During the argument, a cat drops down, steals his money, and flees. He catches up with the cat and uses a walking stick to hold it in place. Not long after, a mysterious character walks up to Rudo telling Rudo that the stick belongs to him. Rudo tells him it's just a stick. This causes him to get angry and charge up. Rudo sees the same emblem that Engine has and concludes that he is also a janitor. The mysterious character then says, "I'll give you a taste of my love stick." The conflict between Rudo and the mysterious character previously then begins. Zanka tells Rudo that his parents didn't educate him well and he lacks manners. Rudo remembers parts of his childhood spent being raised by Rigto in a brief flashback. Rudo apologizes for stealing the jinki of Zanka because of what Rigto used to tell him about cooling down for a moment during a conflict and thinking about how the other person is feeling. Zanka also apologizes to Rudo for his overreaction about his jinki being stolen. Rudo tells Zanka that like Zanka, he also has a jinki, which is his gloves. Rudo then remembered what Rigto told him before, that he needs to fix his sour face, and he remembered when he tried fixing it in the mirror by practicing some smiling techniques. Zanka assumes Rudo is making fun of him. Rudo tries it again with both his mouth and eyes closed. Zanka gets even more annoyed thinking Rudo is making fun of him. They both lose their temper, to which Zanka says Rudo's goal is a worthless one. They start arguing and the argument turns into a fight. During the fight, Zanka asks Rudo if his jinky is his glove or his jinky is his ability to turn anything he touches into a jinky. Rudo gets compliment from Zanka about his powers, saying you're a cheat, that's why he called you a prodigy. But you know what? A mere genius like you is no match for a super ordinary guy like me, as he charges at Rudo with incredible speed. He tries hitting Rudo from above with his staff, but Rudo is able to barely dodge it with his quick reflexes. Zanka follows up the move with continuous slashes aimed at Rudo before finally landing a hit on him that sends him flying. After which Zanka is able to land more multiple hits on him, telling him that having a great jinky is the only thing good about him because so far he is slow to catch on. Rudo sends his own attack that is dodged very easily by Zanka as he looks unfazed by it. He smashes Rudo again with his stick using an incredible force and calls him a scum within an ability. Zanka notices that Rudo threw something on his face. He gets disgusted after realizing it is probably poop from a plunger. Rudo tries to hit Zanka with the plunger, yelling at him saying, "Stop messing around and talking nonsense with me. It's now my turn to trash you." Rudo notices that Zanka is extremely afraid of the plunger and his method is working, so he chases Zanka through the alley. Zanka keeps yelling at Rudo, telling him to stop it, but Rudo continuously pours poop particles on his clothes. Engine arrives to stop the unserious fight between Rudo and Zanka. Few minutes after Zanka picks them up in the jeep, he laughs at them for fighting with a turd and adds that he has never seen such a disgraceful fight between two guys fighting over poop. This causes Rudo to rethink his actions, saying, "I was fighting with poop while being so confident." He jokes around and teases them for a little while before telling Rudo that Zanka will be his mentor. He adds that Zanka is the best giver in handling the jinky among the janitors and he will learn a lot from him. Rustling noises echo from the back of the jeep. Zanka looks to check what it is and sees a young woman, so he asks, "When did you get here?" Ryu. She wakes up and immediately moves to Rudo's side and asks him, "Are you Rudo?" Rudo gets shy and she continuously touches his hair, complimenting him about his hair. Zanka drives constantly through a gate and tells them, "Alrighty, time to head out to our home, the janitor's headquarters." A car drives through a desert land and enters a tunnel. Upon arriving, Engine steps out of the vehicle, and the whole gang follow him, with Rudo still petrified that he touched poop. Zanka introduces them and says to the janitor's HQ. At the janitor's HQ, Engine and Zanka take Rudo to the receptionist, who we find out is called Semiu. Semiu asks Rudo to show her his potential, which confuses Rudo. Engine tells Rudo what Semius Jinky is and that it is stored in her glasses. She peeps into Rudo and gets shocked. Engine asks curiously, saying, "What's wrong? What did you see?" She brushes the question off and tells them what he needs to work on in training and that he needs to train to use his powers naturally. She adds that there is shit all over his neck, causing Engine to laugh at him and tease him for playing with shit. Rudo yells at Engine, telling him that he wasn't playing with shit. Engine departs to meet the boss and on his way explains to Rudo the number of janitors and how they are divided into departments. Then they arrive at the boss's door. Engine stops and asks Rudo not to start by asking him questions about getting up to the Sky People, and he shouldn't ask the boss about jinkies. He tells Rudo that no one knows what the boss's jinky is, but the janitors still follow and respect him, with his true strength coming from their complete loyalty to him. Engine and Rudo open the door to find nobody there. Semiu arrives and tells them that the boss is not around because he went on a business trip. Ryu also arrives and suggests that Rudo come along with them for their cleanup work as an apprentice. She adds, saying, "I want to know more about Rudo." Right. The members of the gang begins to wear masks in preparation for their cleanup work. Ryu tells Rudo to carefully observe their cleanup work. That takes us back before the cleanup. Here Semiu starts by explaining the details of the request. She tells them that there are small aberrant beasts approaching the barricade and they'll need a janitor to clear them as requested just to be safe. Rudo gets confused because of the language Semiu used, and Engine tells Semiu that he called it a dump site for Rudo so that Rudo could easily understand. She corrects Engine's mistake by telling Rudo the necessary terminologies, saying there is a division down here where humans can live and they are called safe zones, while the other areas contaminated with garbage and inhabited by the aberrant beasts are the contamination zones. She adds that the area where he fell is one of the most dangerous contamination zones, called the Forbidden Zone. At the contamination zone, Rudo reminisces, thinking about the fact that he was able to survive the Forbidden Zone without a mask. He thinks about the Sky People and the dump down here with him, asking himself if the Sky People are even aware of the junk people down here. They come across some group of people and Rudo asks Ryu who they are, and she answers Rudo, telling him that they are janitors too, supporters that do not have the abilities of a giver but are valuable colleagues who support the janitors. Rudo and one of their members exchange greetings, with Rudo commenting on how strong his grip is. Ryu starts to talk about how strong one of their members is physically. During their small talk, one of their other member identifies the presence of the aberrant beasts. The beasts troop out in numbers, with Rudo being extremely surprised, saying, "What the hell?" "That's a lot." Rudo asks Ryu if they will be alright because of the size of the herd, and Rudo answers him, telling Rudo that they are not smart and they are very weak. She tells him how they are perfect for his observation, as they are not smart so they cannot harm him, and they can serve as an introduction for him into the world of janitors. He comments about how he thinks it is true that they are not docile and how they look like animals, after which they start attacking in a hostile manner. Rudo freaks out, asking Ryu to call for reinforcements, but she refuses, explaining to Rudo that the kind they are facing are just a rank above the smaller ones, strong but still ideal for training newbies. Ryu plays around, talking about a welcome party for Rudo, to which Rudo thinks to himself, saying, "How can you be so relaxed?" And Ryu answers him, telling him that down there it is very important to have an ease of mind. Rudo thinks to himself that it's the only thing he is lacking, but it should not be hard to develop an ease of mind. Immediately after which a large aberrant crash lands, causing Rudo to freak out, but Ryu gets excited, talking about how cool the aberrant beast looks, and then she tells Rudo that a strong opponent gets her fired up. Rudo thinks to himself once again, telling himself that it's alright, it's just an ease of mind he needs. Ryu faces a swarm of aberrant beasts while carrying a pair of scissors. The scissors in question are shown to be her jinki, which she enlarges and wields with her legs. Ryu surprises Rudo with her prowess as she kills several of the little aberrant beasts. Rudo is first given an explanation of Ryu's jinki by one of the fans, who refers to him as the Ripper. A supporter also tells Rudo to not slack off just because he is observing. The supporter destroys the aberrant beast behind Rudo and throws it towards Ryu so she could finish it off, with Ryu splitting it in half and suggesting they throw more to her, with the supporters agreeing. Rudo, taken aback within the battlefield, watches in awe, surprised that every one of them is able to work together as a team and be so in sync with each other, even without any special abilities. The disoriented and bound up human trafficker from the truck stop is shown, and he recalls that Rudo was the one who had done this to him. An unidentified individual also questions him menacingly, "Where'd the Skyperson go?" As Rudo, Ryu, and the other janitors continue to battle the enormous aberrant beast, they come to the realization that their jinki has no effect on the beast. According to Ryu, cutting one of the aberrant monsters in half should have been sufficient to kill it because its vital spots are the same as those of a live thing. Ryu is unfazed by the circumstance and opts to continue chopping it up until it stops moving. According to one of the supporting janitors, they will note this and call it a new variety, sending out warnings to towns that are surrounding them. Rudo believes there is little he can do to be of assistance. With her jinki, Ryu keeps dissecting the aberrant beast until she spots something gleaming inside. Rudo falls in after the beast attacks, producing fissures in the ground. He considers how, since he can't even utilize his jinki, he may exact revenge on those above him as he plummets. He is stopped and pulled up by the supporting janitor, who tells him, "If you have something you want to do before, you can't even do it. Run." As Ryu hits it, the aberrant beast starts to scream, letting her know that it has a weak place. The beast is knocked down by her final strike. According to her, when she pierced through an object, it perished. They were perplexed as to how it could be powered by a jinki when it was revealed to be so. Zanka is shown sluggishly making his way down a hallway towards a busy room at the end of the corridor. The housekeepers are mingling and drinking inside the space. When Zanka inquires about the situation, Ryu responds that Rudo is being welcomed to the underworld during a party. Rudo can be seen sitting alone and dejectedly leaning his head against the table when Zanka looks across the room. Rudo is disappointed that he couldn't use his jinki effectively, according to Ryu. Ryu responds that it had a different core when Zanka inquires about the strange aberrant creature from their last request. They were worried that this power might result in the birth of an abnormal beast, she says. Still seated, Rudo has his head bowed down as he is joined by someone at the table. His name is Gris Lubian, he says. He tells Rudo that he did a fantastic job yesterday of hiding Fall's protection. Rudo claims that because he was powerless, Gris and Ryu had to save him, just like they had to do when he was on the surface with Rikto. He goes on to add that he needs to return to the top as soon as possible, and that if he doesn't make a change, someone else will have to save him once more. Rudo is perplexed when Gris thanks him. He claims that, contrary to how most supporters are perceived by others when they first meet them, as weak or burdens, Rudo is an exception. He declares as he gestures across the room to follow. He enlisted the help of the janitors to exterminate wild animals, and he is raising a valuable item in order to learn how to contribute. Even if he does start giving, he intends to keep on being a supporter so people who disparage him will be forced to retract their statements. Rudo is asked by Gris what exactly he intended to do prior to arriving here, and is advised to think back on that before taking any action to make it happen. Rudo is comforted by Gris, who urges him to have faith in himself and tells him that he is still alive. Engine appears and inquires about whether he's had something to eat while Rudo processes what he said. Rudo is invited to join Ryu, Zanka, and Gris for dinner. The human trafficker also operates elsewhere. He was observed bleeding and pleading for his life, adding that he had said all he had to say. He is killed by the enigmatic figure, who smiles. Semu sits down at her desk and looks down at her phone. It rings a little while later with a request coming from the person on the other end. A request was made. Semu informs Rudo, Zanka, Gris, and a few other janitors. Since Rudo isn't yet a janitor in accordance with the law, Zanka queries why he is present. She claims that the nature of the request justifies Rudo's participation. She goes on to describe the request's specifics, which include a merchant being attacked by an aberrant beast and cargo that was stolen. It turns out that this shipment included a human who had fallen from heaven. Rudo is advised by Gris to make his own decision over whether or not to travel. Rudo considers how he might not be able to wield his power effectively and how he might once more become a burden. But he also believes that there might be a hint for returning above. Rudo declares his intention to leave. Engine couldn't go since he had another commitment, but Semu says that if Zanka is present, everything would be okay. Now that they are outside and on their way to their destination, Zanka, who is clearly very thrilled, advises them to give it their all. Gris responds that he primarily uses his bare hands when Rudo asks him why he doesn't have any weapons. Another janitor adds that before starting each job, Gris prays to an amulet. They carry on talking when someone enters the room from behind them. As the merchant who sent the request, they identify themselves. Rudo starts grilling them with inquiries regarding the Skyperson. They don't know anything about them, according to the merchant, who claims that they were unconscious. Rudo expresses his hope that they aren't exploiting the Skyperson for financial gain, which they vehemently deny. Zanka considers how strange it is that the aberrant beast would kidnap someone given how they always attack any people they see. Since Rudo came, a lot of strange changes, he observes. They are ushered into a building by the merchant, who urges them to grab the Skyperson quickly before it's too late. They all are pushed toward what seems to be a doll perched on a chair. Just before the floor gives way under them, Rudo exclaims that it isn't even human. The cleaning staff descends to a lower level to search for the kidnapped individual. The shopkeeper on the top level says he's right there and then seems to dissolve. In their approach, two figures describe a Skyperson who is also a giver. Zanka understands that everything was a setup by vandals. The Skyperson will be taken, according to the vandals. Rudo and the janitors face off with the vandals. All of the vandals are givers, according to Gris. The other team members are then instructed to locate a way out and escort Rudo, under his orders. Rudo and Gris flee, leaving Zanka to cope with the vandals. Rudo claims he could fight them, but Gris counters that they are more powerful than the kidnappers he has previously faced. The vandal is informed by Zanka that their objective is evident and that he knew it would only be a matter of time before they learned about Rudo. Although the vandal responds that they do not intend to sell him, he remarks that they could certainly get a good price for him. The vandal explains that they are interested in learning more about heaven and inquires as to how Rudo could have survived crossing the boundary alive. The word boundary seems to be perplexing Zanka. The vandal responds that there are no aberrant beasts, and the man goes on to claim that the request was all a ruse to draw Rudo in. They do have clay dolls, though, and they sprout out of the earth. According to Zanka, the woman who led them there was a clay figurine made using the vandal's talent. The vandal then cautions that there is a real person among them, and another vandal jumps at him, landing a hit as he continues to explain that it's simple to get rid of something soft like clay. One of the vandals claims that because Zanka is accustomed to dealing with larger targets rather than human-sized ones, he is letting his guard down. As the vandal instructs Zanka to estimate where the real one is, the clay dolls start to rush around him. As they hit him from behind, Zanka swings at a few of them, missing the real one. The vandal claims that they had already turned the ground into mud, so as Zanka tries to counter, the ground starts to soften and he risks becoming stuck if he moves too much. Since Zanka appears to be the only person who can fight, the clay vandal claims that if they can render him helpless, it will be their victory. Angered, Zanka declares that he has a better understanding of their skills and reveals that the woman uses a shovel jinky to control muck while the male utilizes snowshoes to prevent sinking while attacking. The vandals become irate and warn him that things won't get better. Zanka claims he has little experience going up against people, but he is an expert with the jinky. He enumerates all the elements of his jinky that he has mastered and memorized, such as the weight and swing. After that, he plunges the jinky into the earth, creating a shockwave that allows him to sense the insides of the clay dolls and discover the true self that resides there. He quickly assaults both of them after spotting them, killing both with a single stroke. Zanka claims that they were obstinate during the attack and are now being punched in the face. Then, so are you, a cloaked figure says as they both emerge from behind him. Rudo, Gris, and the other supporters are seen racing toward an exit. When Gris abruptly stops, Rudo bumps into him. They open the entrance to a stairwell after spotting an emergency exit. As they proceed to check on Zanka, Gris sends a couple of the supporters outside so they can use the chokers to call for help. When they hear approaching footsteps, Gris feels comforted since he believes Zanka has finished dealing with the vandals. Since the person approaching is not Zanka, Gris inquires as to their identity. "So it's you?" they remark as they suddenly materialize from behind Rudo and gesture at him. The generous celestial being as Gris exclaims that the individual is a vandal, the person ruins the exit. The guy says that in addition to fighting the janitors, he must also take on the Skyperson. He goes on to claim that because he got lost and had to deal with Zanka, he wasted a lot of time. Gris starts to inquire about what happened to Zanka when he is cut off. Someone who is really interested in meeting Rudo is mentioned. Rudo smacks the man's hand away and asks what he did to Zanka as the man reaches to take off Rudo's mask because there are no aberrant monsters in the area. He wasn't killed, but he was poisoned because the individual claims to be kind to people who appear to be powerful. The individual starts conjuring claws while claiming Rudo won't experience any pain if he just follows them. Gris and Follow swipe at the attacker as he prepares to strike. He quickly avoids each of their blows and then strikes back by kicking both of them. Follow, according to this person, has potential whereas Gris does not. Gris stands up and shoves Rudo away, declaring that he will defend his friends no matter what their value. The individual expresses surprise at nobody defending someone and says he heard there are nobodies that work as janitors and are called supporters. As the attacker raises their claws, Rudo approaches Gris from behind and advises him to flee, but he is too late. Gris has already passed away, therefore the individual advises Rudo not to be upset. Rudo is shown observing Gris being stabbed by the other man's claws. Rudo reaches for his amulet as it falls, and instead of Gris, Rigto is in front of him. Rigto enters the home after hearing a thudding sound, according to Rudo's memory. He hurries to save the younger Rudo when he sees him banging his head on the wall. Even after the pain in his hands has subsided, Rigto questions him as to why he did it. Rudo responds that he has nothing except dissatisfaction that he is unable to express when asked why he doesn't meet other people. Rigto claims that Rudo is frustrated because he feels worthless since he believes his parents have abandoned him. Rudo feels like he has nothing, so Rigto makes the decision to take him outside to try to discover something he loves. He gives Rudo encouragement by promising that one day his favorite items will be in the vacant room he is currently in. The two of them go out and experiment with many activities such as reading, sports, and cooking, but Rigto sees that Rudo was okay with none of them, even though none of them were the one. Rudo inquires while Rigto speaks, and Rigto replies that it's a landfill for civilian waste. Rudo hurries to grab a doll when he sees someone put it into the trash. When it was only slightly broken, he wondered why somebody would throw it away as he started to cry. He claims to want to make things better. Rigto observes Rudo and notices that he may derive value from trashed items. Rewinding to the present, Rudo caught Gris' amulet as it fell and started to work. Rudo's capacity to draw the value out of anything he touches is what causes Gris, who is barely aware, to understand why he hasn't been able to use his Jinki before. This talent is different from Rudo's power to make anything he touches into a Jinki. Rudo fully activates Gris' amulet as the odd man claims he has no idea what it is capable of. Rudo tells Gris that if it weren't for the fact that Gris reminded him of what he initially wanted to do, he would already be losing his cool. He goes on to claim that he will beat up the weird man and that he doesn't accept what he said. Amused, the man declares that he appreciates those with strong fighting spirits and generous hearts. Then he announces himself as Jabberwonger to Rudo. He exclaims, "Let's rip each other to shreds," as he charges at Rudo after asking for his name. Follow is currently attempting ineffectively to stem Gris' bleeding. Gris considers Rudo and recalls how his Jinki had previously failed due to his rage and impatience, but he is now free of that fear. Jabber asks Rudo why he isn't moving at all and whether he is treating the battle seriously in order to find out his motivation. "Come at me if you can, you piece of shit," Rudo says in reply. Jabber urges Rudo to utter his name since he commanded him to and then charges at him. Jabber is startled and miffed that Rudo was able to avoid the attack as he lifts his hand. Jabber launches numerous attacks again, but none of them connect, leaving him confused. According to Rudo, Gris prayed to the amulet for everyone's safe return, which implies that there were no accidents. Additionally, Rudo must fortify his defense in order to prevent injuries, thus he imagines the enemy's strike missing it. Rudo informs Jabber that he was unaware that Jabber was moving to evade the attacks and not him as Jabber launches another attack. Rudo explains that even if the amulet can't fight, he will still use it to smash Jabber with his own hands because he knows where he is going. The conflict between Rudo and Jabber gets heated up. Jabber was struck by a fist from Rudo, who then taunted him. Rudo replies that he doesn't care since Jabber is asking if he feels regret for injuring people. This response suits him, so he lunges towards Rudo before being struck and thrown across the room. He quickly turns around and attacks Rudo again, this time using his claws to smash through a pillar and scatter pieces of it all over the place. Rudo avoids a couple pebbles as Jabber attempts a sneak assault from behind a huge concrete block. Rudo smacks him into the ground as soon as Jinky, the amulet, notices him. Rudo strikes Jabber with his fists as he starts to stand up, delighted. Rudo yells at him to go, but Jabber breaks out in laughter, stating that Rudo must have enjoyed beating him up. Jabber says the amulet must be able to sense hostility and divert Rudo away from hostile strikes. The amulet can't react to things without animosity or intent, which have a neurotoxic on them, are mentioned before he uses them to stab himself in the stomach. He chuckles maniacally and wonders if the Jinky would label him hostile if he fell asleep from the toxin, and started to lash out. Later, after falling unconscious, he hacks through the wall behind him. Jabber begins to explode, releasing more energy from his body. Rudo, confused and amazed at such intense power, he thinks to himself he still has this kind of power, as Jabber jumps towards Rudo with an intense force, attacking him multiple times, which Rudo dodges. Rudo acknowledges that if they don't get away from Jabber and the others, they'll get caught up in this. Jabber interrupts him and launches an assault. Rudo immediately rerouted and threw Jabber after failing to extend the Jinky to block. Jabber screams once again as he starts to stand up. Rudo understands that Jabber actually did lose consciousness as a result of the poison, and he must be a very skilled magician because he figured out the amulet Jinky so quickly when Rudo hadn't expected him to. Rudo speculates that Jabber may be a super masochist after recalling a handful of the things he stated during their prior altercation. Jabber stands up and launches himself around, forcing Rudo to defend himself. Jabber is about to make a breakthrough when his attack is stopped and he is knocked to the ground. The Jinky holding Jabber down is recognized by Rudo when he glances. Zanka, who is clearly agitated, approaches and questions Jabber's decision to battle Rudo when he hasn't yet defeated him. He then commands Rudo to move aside so that he can discipline Jabber. When Rudo comments on how tough Zanka appears, the exhausted-looking Zanka responds, "Fit as a violin." Rudo says that because Jabber has gone insane, his Jinky is no longer functional and that he can only dodge. Zanka sees that Rudo could finally utilize a Jinky correctly. During the struggle, Zanka studied the Jinky and discovered that it responds to antagonism. He also has trouble moving due to the poison that was applied to him earlier, so he devises a scheme. To try out something, Zanka asks Rudo whether he can strike him. He claims that there's a possibility that if he strikes Rudo, the Jinky may retaliate by shifting, and because he has more reach with his love stick more than Rudo's fists, he should be able to reach Rudo first ahead of Jabber's claws. Zanka responds that he wouldn't have to worry about it then when Rudo points out that if it doesn't work, he will be the one getting struck. Jabber starts to stand up and attacks right away, tearing through a pillar by Rudo and Zanka. Rudo is warned by Zanka not to let the claws contact him since even a tiny puncture might temporarily paralyze you. Rudo is unexpectedly attacked by Zanka after turning to face him. When Rudo's Jinky responds, Zanka is moved, enabling him to hit Jabber. Rudo is startled that Zanka really attacked him, while Zanka is amazed that it actually worked. After seeing that their strategy would succeed against Jabber, Zanka maneuvers around Rudo and presumptively attacks him. Rudo uses the Jinky as planned, and it propels him once more, allowing Zanka to hit Jabber with a powerful blow straight down. Rudo responds with a quip that he'll show Zanka what's rough when Zanka remarks that he's becoming a little rough and that Rudo could expand the distance that he can move. Zanka becomes more agitated and assaults Rudo as Jabber starts to stand up. Zanka finishes his attack by sliding and collapsing to the ground, happy that it is finally finished. Rudo's Jinky, Gris Amulet, is dissolving as Zanka, who is tired, declares that he is unable to travel any farther. Zanka watches Rudo acting strangely as he begins to tremble and says, "It's my fault." When Rudo collapses on the ground, Zanka notices a cut on his back. Jabber stands back up and approaches Rudo and Zanka. He is pleased with the outcomes even if he is unaware of what he accomplished while he was unconscious. Zanka doesn't understand how Jabber is still alive after all the blows they gave him. It's his left claw, Jabber clarifies. He will be able to relieve the agony by applying just the appropriate quantity of poison with his left claw. He goes on to state that because using too much of it may be problematic, he keeps it for those he wants to kill. He says that because he is accustomed to using the poison on his right paw, it only lasts him 10 minutes, but Zanka's poison would wear off in around 30, so he chooses to stab him once again. Jabber moves toward Rudo, warning him that they're going to be upset with him if he fails to accomplish his initial objective. He takes Rudo in his arms and turns to Zanka, saying, "See you later, nasty person." Rudo is thinking that this is his fault while cognizant but immobilized. Rudo and Jabber climb up a floor through a hole in the ceiling, and Jabber is perplexed as to why they are outside while they should be within a structure. Ryu is present when he lands since she is close. Jabber releases Rudo as a familiar umbrella strikes him and propels him away. This needs a good cleaning, Engine remarks as he and several other janitors enter looking ready to battle. Engine and the other janitors are seen standing near the entrance hole to the structure. Engine explains that their communications don't function down there and that it's highly normal for a bad man to set up a trap somewhere like that since he realizes that it runs rather far below. Engine thanks one of the fans who'd already managed to flee for having found a phone and calling them, otherwise they would not have been aware of what was happening. Engine reassures the supporter, stating, "Don't worry, they're not that weak," in response to their concern about whether Gris and the others are alright. He instructs the supporter to go help them with a group of individuals. Jabber stands up and notices the gang of janitors disdainfully glancing at him, and this gets him aroused. Because he appears a little weird, Engine asks Rudo if this is the person he was battling. While another janitor refutes Ryu, alleging that Rudo is scarcely breathing, Ryu is relieved to observe that Rudo appears to be doing better than she had anticipated. A third janitor bursts in, furious that his fellow workers had been treated in this way. Engine tells Jabber he has a lot of questions for him, but that it won't be simple to escape after messing with the janitors as they start to argue back and forth. Jabber acknowledges his predicament and declares that he must go immediately or risk losing his freedom. Then he goes on to claim that he has been given orders to bring the Sky Person back. He doesn't care if he loses or even dies since he can't go until his task is finished, even if he wants to. Jabber is about to rush at them when he is stopped by a grip from behind. When the individual says it's time to go back, Jabber knows them. He declines and requests that Q-Tony depart since he must take the Sky Person with him. The time is up, according to Q-Tony, and there are henchmen in the way. Engine is perplexed as to her origin. Jabber becomes agitated and refuses to leave anything undone. Q-Tony whispers to him that the boss was grinning widely, which Jabber appeared to be delighted to witness. As Ryu spots a manhole on the wall behind him, he tells the janitors that he must go. Rudo may be asleep from the poison, but Jabber says he had a great time playing with him despite the fact that he is a Sky Person and sends his compliments. Rudo yells at him from the ground, asking him to hold off since they haven't finished. He keeps claiming that unless he makes up for what he did to Gris many times over, it won't be over. Jabber detects a pattern on Rudo's hands and claims to have acquired that series as well. It's a coincidence, he claims, and his employer would be delighted to learn about it. Jabber watches as Q-Tony leaps through the wall's manhole before following him. He warns Rudo that he will return for him and to make sure he values it carefully before he continues. The manhole cover shuts and vanishes from the wall as soon as Jabber enters. Rudo glances at his hand, unsure of what series means as the janitors see it go. After bringing back Zanka and Gris, the latter of whom was on a stretcher, the janitors are all outside the structure. Rudo apologizes for damaging Gris' amulet as he crosses over to him. Gris claims that it was crucial to him and that he is happy that it benefited Rudo. He commends him and says well done. Rudo sits alone outside the janitor headquarters. Engine joins him and comments on his lengthy face. He proceeds to compliment Rudo on using a jinky correctly after that, but Rudo cuts him off by asking what expression he should be making. Rudo claims that despite thinking he had changed and made progress, the same thing keeps happening and he was unable to assist the individual who had helped him. Engine explains to Rudo that Gris was willing to risk his life to save his teammates, and that he shielded Rudo because he considers him a friend rather than simply another Sky Person. Engine stands up and commands Rudo to greet Gris face to face. As they enter, Rudo is shocked to discover Gris seated there, appearing to be in perfect health as he congratulates Rudo for unleashing his strength. Rudo looks with shock that Gris is still alive. Engine and another janitor approach Rudo and confess that they were unaware of the cause of his extreme depression. Rudo gets agitated and tells them that he was confused since they said Gris was deeply wounded so he thought he died. Gris states that due to the medical staff he is okay. The lone healer giver janitor and the person who assisted him, Isha Stilza, is introduced by the speaker. Gris praises her for saving him from death as she implies subtly that she was only of assistance. Then he tells Follow that he helped him as well, but that if he is too eager, he cannot be a giver. Gris turns to Rudo and compliments him and Zanka on their successful cornering of such a formidable foe. He goes on to clarify that there is no need to be concerned about the amulet, and that he is pleased that it had a purpose for someone. Rudo expresses gratitude to Gris for being alive. Engine mentions that since they launched a full-fledged battle with the janitors, they now had to worry about both aberrant monsters and vandals. Engine is discussing some fresh information when a second janitor enters the room. He discusses the boundary that the Vandals stated and how this indicates that they are also looking towards the skies. As Engine addresses the janitor as boss, Rudo wonders who he is. As he approaches, Rudo learns that the man is the janitor's employer. As the leader of the janitors, Alhak Corvus, he introduces himself to Rudo. He continues, remembering that the reason Rudo is here is to figure out how to return to the upper level. Then he adds that they don't want individuals like him here and that he believed Rudo was simply here for information. But he claims that Rudo has witnessed the virtue of the janitors, has attempted to save them with his life, and possesses a talent that would allow him to do it, proving his worth to the janitors. Rudo is formally welcomed to the janitors when he declares that he has no objections. The border between the heavens and the underworld is where the boss speaks to Rudo and explains that anybody who attempts to cross it will perish on the other side. He relates a tale of a woman who was allegedly the closest to the boundary in the prohibited area. He claims that she assisted a traveler who got lost and answered when questioned why she was in the banned area by claiming she sees people coming down from above. She said that there was someone who could travel up and down without dying since she had lived there for years. According to Corvus, this woman could have spotted someone who could breach the border. Rudo hypothesizes that they may find a route back up if they track down the person the woman claimed to have seen. Corvus continues by claiming that they would also learn how Rudo managed to survive. He asks what Rudo wants to do as he continues to warn Rudo that it would be extremely harmful. There is no question in Rudo's mind that he is going. He states, Rudo is wearing a janitor's outfit when Engine enters the room, and he comments that it fits him. And that's how the first part of this manual ends. Well guys, if you like this video and you want a second part, comment below with the word second. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell and like the video. But most important, leave a comment. Until the next video.